You're tuned in to the It's Real podcast with your hosts, Kayla Callender and Andrew Yagi. Each week, we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes working full-time in real estate and share with you real-life stories, our successes and failures as we work to help consumers and industry professionals reach their real estate and real-life goals. Here we go. It's episode 26 of the It's Real podcast. I'm Andrew Yagi. I'm a real estate agent.
And I'm Kayla Callender. I'm a mortgage lender.
Kayla, how's it going this week?
Fabulously. We're almost to the end of the week when we're shooting this. And even though the weekend really doesn't mean much to us in real estate because we work all the time, it's still a great week. How about you?
It has been a fantastic week. I've really enjoyed, the nice weather. I've got a lot of family. I dabble in ag a little bit, a lot of friends in ag. And it's like, boy, all of a sudden, everybody's busy again. Everybody's getting excited about getting back out into the field. In fact, Kayla, I took a little bit of the day off just the other day to do a lot of outdoor projects that I've been neglecting. We had grubs really bad in our yard, and my wife has been very unhappy with how our yard looks, and even had a friend say, it's kind of embarrassing. You're a real estate agent and you sell houses and your yard is like mostly dead. So I actually went out and got kind of an overseeder from the rental store and reworked the grass. But Kayla, you wouldn't believe how hard it is to find grass seed in November. I ended up having to buy like 10 really, really little bags at Home Depot. And then I needed a little bit more for the backyard. So I went to Fleet Farm and
all over the place.
Yeah, I had to run all over, but I was successful in my quest.
Well, good. I'm sure the wife was very happy about this.
She is. She commented, came home, said, wow, the yard looks so much better. So we'll cross our fingers. I said, no promises. We'll just have to see how everything comes up in the spring. But I have high hopes, Kayla.
God, I have high hopes for you, Andy. Good luck with that.
Absolutely. What's new in your world?
This week we got a charity gala. TNT is coming up next year, but one thing that's kind of similar to that is called the FM Wine and Dine. So you may have heard of both, but the one that we're doing this week is for the charity event through the Village. And so it's like Big Brother, Big Sister programs. The Village is super helpful within our community. So we've got that coming up this week, and it's really nice to just, I think people are still in that mindset of a little bit COVID is, they're still used to getting out there. I feel like it's been years, right. But it's always so nice to get together with the community, support and rally for the same things. So, from Homeward Animal Shelter, TNT Kids Fitness to, I think about, like I said, the FM Wine and Dine that's coming up this week. So many organizations in our community. I mean, there's just so many people there to network and to talk and to share a common goal. So we're going to get dressed up and fancied for that this week. And yeah, it is the season for events and parties, and Christmas parties are already beginning. So
aren't they? I know my wife and I were just talking the other day. She's like, okay, do you know about the holiday parties yet? Because we've got to schedule these different things. We've got to schedule something for my work. And Kayla, I feel like, especially in your world, if it's not a gala, it's a golf event. So it's just a little different seasonality. Maybe at Sweet Shots, that would really, if they had like a gala there at Sweet Shots, that would be just the ultimate event for you, I feel like.
Right. Heels and golf for me, just the best of both worlds. Bring a volleyball, we're good.
I love it. Kayla, what are you seeing in the market this week as far as rates are concerned?
We saw a dip for a while there. Almost 2 weeks ago, we saw a dip, and it caused a little bit of a rush of, I need to go get approved now. But by the time people had gotten their app in, they're not finding a house in 24 hours. So we saw a little bit of a dip over from like a Friday to Monday. And then last week we saw kind of, I don't want to say a roller coaster because it was like a little baby roller coaster, we'll say. So we saw a little dip and then up a bit. So it's been pretty stable, but you'll see 7.36 is a 30-year fixed average. Again, according to a variety of different lenders based on best case scenario, great credit. So you'll see that we were seeing above 8 at one point. So that's
pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Nice to see. And I do foresee us seeing a trend downward here, but I also see it's almost Thanksgiving. It's getting into Christmas season. This is notoriously a slow time for everybody. Yeah. So although I don't see applications coming in quite heavily, probably in the next 30 to 45 days. But I'm feeling like we might see a little bit of a slowdown in rates. I mean, the job report is noting that there are signs that we will likely see a decline in rates. I mean, we talked about it last time. If rates come up, I'll be surprised. You never know. But
Right.
I think if people are serious about getting approved, going through the process, I think that doing that now in hopes that rates will decline into 2024, I mean, your best bet is to get a head start.
Absolutely. Are you starting to see things really slow down in your office too, as far as things coming in?
You know, we will have our highest unit month in December, which is crazy, right? Because it's, year end. But we've seen a lot of people, Andy, get their apps in and sit and sit and sit and sit. And we've seen them convert lately. So, not as many apps as maybe a couple months ago, but we're seeing a few more conversions. And I
Sure.
think that has to do with sellers being like, okay, I just need to sell this house now. I think inventory for clients that of mine that have been searching, that inventory has been sitting for a little bit. And
Mhm.
so we saw some conversions, but I can feel a slight slowdown. People don't want to move over the holidays. They want to focus
Mhm.
on that. So what about you?
Sure.
Are you seeing that too? What are you witnessing?
Yeah, I would say actually, compared to last year, I had more units, on the books this time last year than this year.
Mhm.
And still talking to people, but it just seems like a lot of the potential sellers that I'm working with, if they haven't made a decision, I do have a few that may come together here soon, but a lot
Mhm.
are waiting till after the first of the year. Even with buyers, I mean, unless they have to move for work or death or divorce or relocation for whatever reason, a lot of people are kind of sitting on the sidelines. Or I've had a lot of buyers come back to me and say, oh man, I should have jumped at that particular house. I'm really kicking myself. So I
Right.
think just I think just with overall economic uncertainty, which some people say is cliche, I just think a lot of people aren't overly motivated right now. And again, people still citing high rates, even though, Kayla, we're really in a
Mhm.
pretty good spot right now.
Well, and right, and depending on the program, depending if it's, down payment assistance or it's a bond program, I mean, those rates could be lower. I mean, you
Mhm.
saw some sixes there, not not crazy high, just higher than what people have been used to.
Right. So I
Mhm.
think that's a great segue, Kayla, to kind of talk about our main topic today, which I think will focus on affordability and what options are out there. Because
Mhm.
last week we talked about, hey, there's still time to get into a home before the end of the year, and
Yep.
that's still true. Although we're running out of daylight, but a lot of people are
Mhm.
still really citing that affordability factor, and a big piece of that tied to rate. So I want to dive into the affordability
Yeah.
piece a little bit more. But before we officially or totally abandon rates, Kayla,
Mhm.
I want to grab. I had just seen you had posted a reel
Yep.
on Facebook that said, "Hey, if buyers in 1974 said they'd wait until rates drop, they would have waited until 1992." So, and I
Yeah.
pulled up kind of the 30-year rate chart,
Mhm.
and it's really easy to forget about this. That in
Yeah.
the early 70s, in the sevens, into the 80s, getting up 15, dip down all the way up to 18. I still haven't come across anyone, Kayla, who's ever said they had an 18% mortgage. Have you?
I've heard of people that have, but I haven't, known them well. It's like, yeah, my first mortgage was, in the 16s, but I mean, they were out there at some point. People were still buying. I know that the common, discussion is, well, yeah, but home prices were so much lower then. Well, yes, and so was your salary. And so was the cost of
Cost of
Halo Top,
living.
which is now $8 for a little tiny pint. It used to be 5, Andy. But all things it bothers me. All things considered.
I love it, Kayla. But that was, I mean, that was really great content that you put out, and looking at that
Yeah.
high in the early 80s, and then things
Mhm.
dropped, and again citing into the 90s that then, oh boy, we're back down into seven, maybe the sixes, and
Mhm.
onward and upwards. But the biggest thing, Kayla, I look at, the rate is only one piece of it, and we always
Yeah.
talk about how, hey, buy now, buy when it makes sense for you, but you can always refinance. But Kayla, I'm starting to see more and more people just from a financial standpoint, that they're really in kind of a tough spot and really struggling, to afford that down payment. And even I have more and more, buyers asking for closing costs and concessions
Yeah.
because they just can't make it work.
Mhm.
And so that's really telling too, in addition to looking at some of the other economic data, the credit card debt is through the roof.
Mhm.
But I think at the end of the day, Kayla, it's important for people to know that, there are other options, including grants and loans, in the form of down payment assistance. Minnesota, North Dakota, I'm sure about every state out there
Yeah.
has options. Maybe you can talk a little bit about North Dakota and kind of what they offer.
Yeah, so North Dakota Housing Finance Agency, NDHFA is what we call it. They have a variety of programs. A common misconception is you have to be a first-time home buyer, and you don't. There are certain, if you were to hit that compare interest rates option, Andy, that third one down, this is just a glimpse of the programs that they offer. And so you see how there's first home start, there's all these things, right? So, North Dakota Housing is first and foremost, they're wonderful to work with. They're located in Bismarck. They understand the state of North Dakota. But the cool part is, if you're a first time home buyer, you can get into a home with as little as $500.
Wow.
$500. And based on your income, that is where you are placed into the program. But essentially, the gist of it is this: you receive 3% of the loan amount to be used however you'd like. So, towards down payment, towards closing costs. Now, on here, do you see how the rates they start from lower to higher?
I
5%,
do.
they creep
Mhm.
up. So, first home and first home DCA, for example, those are first home is if you don't get assistance. It's just a program. North Dakota Housing, you don't get assistance. First home start, for example, that is if you're getting to start. Get it? You're getting assistance to start. Now, the difference between start and DCA is, for example, is your income. So if you're over a certain income threshold, you're put into the higher rate. If you make under a certain amount and you have, let's just say, 3 dependents, 4 dependents, that puts you in a different bracket. It's a lot of info up front here, but essentially my point is that we do an analysis to make sure we know, okay, what's your income, how many dependents, and we put you in those categories. Now, the last item is Roots, first home, and then Roots is the other program. So that's if you're a repeat buyer or if you make over a certain income limit. So a lot of program offerings, it's all dependent upon your income and your dependent. So I always encourage people to explore it. It doesn't mean they should go with those programs. And just because they don't get assistance doesn't mean they can't use North Dakota Housing. So in essence, it's essentially a one-stop shop for trying to make sense of lower rates and assistance for buyers.
So let me ask you about this really quick on the North Dakota side, pertaining assistance. Is
Yeah,
this a grant? Is it a loan, like a secondary loan? Can
yeah.
it be both? What does that look like?
Great question, Andy. So the assistance that you get, it's prorated over 96 payments. So if you are in the home for 1 year, then 12 months of that 96 is forgiven. And then when you go to sell, what you owe comes off of your proceeds. So if you're in the home for 4 years versus the total 8, half is forgiven. And if you're in that home and loan for 96 payments, you don't pay a penny back. Whereas some of the assistance programs in the nation, you do pay back in a monthly payment, like a second loan. This is
Mhm.
just like a grant, but you can't just use it and then buy a new house in 6 months and then just pocket those funds.
Sure. But these programs, that would be kind of a similar scenario, even if you put just $500 down, that, eventually, you'd pay it off and some of it is forgiven.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of the clients that I have, if they're 96 payments, so 8 years, they will buy a house and they're coming back to me. Let's just say it was 3 years ago. They come back to me and say, Kayla, we're ready to upgrade. I remind them, okay, it looks like you're going to owe 3 grand, but their house has appreciated so much, they don't even see it. It's not like
Sure.
it's coming out of their pocket. In 99.9% of the scenarios that I've dealt with, it's coming off of their equity. So it's a really great option for people that need a little bit of help just to start.
And even some of these programs, Kayla, I mean, I would assume there are some income limits? I mean, not just anybody can come and apply for one of these great options?
Yeah, so the income limits are based on your household. So if you're married, if your spouse isn't on the loan, we're still going to take into account their income. But also dependents. If you have dependents in your family, your income limit gets to be moved up, meaning you can make more money and not be penalized. So, for example, if you start here and you're making, let's just say under 50 grand, you'll be in one program. If you're making up to 90,000, it might be another. And that's where there are income limit graphs based on the county. So if someone's curious, they could go out to the website and look. But for example, my team, we do a whole analysis. We gather all the documents and we tell you because it's important that you know what rate and program you'll be in.
I really like that, Kayla. And one of the things that I really like about North Dakota as well is, I mean, they do a great job of laying everything out,
I do.
including, looking for participating lenders, which FIBT is on, but
Mhm,
then also taking a home buyer education course. Like
mhm.
the state just isn't giving it away, just saying, hey, come and get it. They're really, making, people put a little skin in the game and take the time to get educated,
Absolutely.
which, I mean, we talk about all the time, the importance and how much more successful, individuals who buy or sell a home are with more
Mhm.
education.
It's true. It's funny. I actually have this book here. I bought this book a while ago. It's called Making Mortgage Sense. And I didn't buy it to teach myself something. I bought it to be like, what are people like what are the things clients don't know? And so I've gone through it and even myself, I'm like, gosh, if only every buyer could just read this is Ron Culver, could just read this. But the truth is people don't do that. They don't have the time. And
Mhm.
in fact, it just comes up so suddenly. But the people that get educated are the ones that are signing on the dotted line, feeling confident, feeling
Mhm.
not just, like, God, I hope I'm doing the right thing. They understand it. And when you understand it, everything just goes so much more smoothly.
Yep, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, Kayla, those are all really great programs. Minnesota, of course, has
Yeah.
some really great programs as well. I'm just pulling up here in my particular county in Otter Tail County, Kayla. In
Mhm.
fact, I was just for the first half of the day at a housing summit for our county, which, some of the big things that we talked about, which everybody talks about, is affordable housing.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy solution, it's not an easy fix. But these are really great tools to have in the tool chest, to help make housing
Mhm.
more affordable. And so, kind of the interesting thing, maybe a little bit more of a spread of options, and North Dakota maybe has some of these as well. But even in our area, if you're building a home now, they've got a big bill tax credit program, $10,000 to $15,000 in property tax refunds. If you're building, you can get down payment assistance up to $10,000, which in this case is a 0% loan for 5% of the purchase price, up to
Yeah.
$10,000. So, it's something.
Yeah.
There are similar options for those that are buying a home, not just building, talking
Mhm.
about eligibility. The process, I think, in Minnesota is probably a little bit more arduous in that they have kind of a paper application.
Yeah.
They do partner with lenders in the area, but I feel like, if one thing Minnesota could do, and they've done a lot of great things, including, appropriating a lot of funds on a statewide level to offer programs like this and to help build affordable housing, to help with things like infrastructure. But I
Mhm.
really like how North Dakota has things streamlined, and how they have, even that home buyer class. That would be so helpful if we could get everybody, housing program or not, but to come and sit through a class if they're going to buy a house. Just think of how much smoother the process would go, Kayla.
It would. In fact, I almost feel bad for people because they come in and they found a house, they're not approved, and it's kind of a rush. And there's so much to cover, right? And yet you're trying to be as, efficient as possible with them that there's a lot that clients miss out on if they're in a rush and it's a mad dash. And, I almost feel bad because they're not getting the enjoyable experience. It's almost just here's a high level overview, here we go, but if people really took the time and educated themselves, let's be honest, there's tons of videos out there and educational posts to follow. And you don't just have to buy a book. You can follow, I mean, people can follow me on Instagram and find out details. But same with you. The opportunity to educate yourself as a buyer, if you're not doing it, do it, because you're just setting yourself up for future
Right.
success and
I
peace of mind.
I feel like I've seen North Dakota housing commercials out there, but how many people do you think really know about these programs and know that they're out there?
I feel like nobody does. I mean, I think they know. I think we talked about this when we first started recording. FHA, people would think that means first time homebuyer association. No,
Right.
that's a government program. But
Right.
they would think first time homebuyer means I'm going to get assistance. And that's not always the case. I actually had a conversation with a client about an hour ago. It does not make sense for her to get down payment assistance because of her situation. And so people think that they all qualify for first time homebuyer. It's all makes sense. Everything's paid for. And the truth is, it's just case by case. Uh,
Mhm.
but I like that question. I mean, how do you feel about it? Do you think that people are educated with it?
No, I don't. I mean, honestly, I could use more education on it.
Mhm.
But then I think even lenders and again, that's where I'll give North Dakota a lot of kudos, and even North Dakota lenders that I've worked with, yourself included, are just very knowledgeable about the programs.
Mhm.
But I think the state sets a little bit of a higher bar. And maybe on the north or the Minnesota side, there's some more that's being done more independently on a county by county level. So then, they're kind of deciding how it's administered and what hoops to jump through and who to talk
Mhm.
to. But I think everyone could benefit from more knowledge, and just especially during times like these when
Mhm.
the economy is a little shakier, rates are perceptually higher. I think
Yeah.
these programs could really help a lot of people. In fact, I know they can. I just worked with a buyer that used one of these Minnesota programs, and it was basically down payment assistance. So in this individual's case, they put, I think, $1,000 down,
Oh, that's
and it's in the form of a secondary loan at a very, very low interest rate. But
mhm.
it was able to help get that individual into a house, which at that point in time was so important. So I just think about the people out there, Kayla, that they have these big goals, or maybe they're in a not so good situation.
Yeah.
Just if they knew about these programs, how much better things could be, because it would help them get into a house.
I agree. I have a lender friend that is in the state and they don't offer down payment assistance, North Dakota housing. They don't have any of that. And you would be shocked at how just a little bit of assistance can help someone just start the process. Or maybe they're just getting out of school and they're starting their career and they haven't saved 5 grand, but they understand the value of owning versus renting. I mean, I think 50% of the deals I do, Andy, are North Dakota housing. I mean, people want to be educated, so they're referred to me because I'm known as someone that will do that. But also, if they see the value of getting a little bit of assistance. Like, yeah, let this help me. So, I
Mhm.
mean, it's all about education and meeting with a lender that's going to explain it. That's the key.
Yep, I like it. So, Kayla, I think the biggest takeaway is, if you're out there looking and you're a first time home buyer, or even if you're not a first time home buyer, um, check into some of these programs that are available. Visit with your agent of choice, your lender of choice. Really work to get educated, because you might be surprised what you qualify for and just how much
Mhm,
easier some of these programs may make things for you,
mhm,
especially as it pertains to getting into a home.
mhm. And if you don't know, ask the lender. If the lender doesn't bring it up, ask them. Ask them, and they'll tell you. Maybe it doesn't make sense for you to be in the program, but at least find out the reasons why.
Mhm. And as always, we're happy to visit with people. So reach out to Kayla. She's very, very knowledgeable, especially on the lending side. I'm always happy to visit with people as well. But Kayla, I think that puts a wrap on episode 26. We've had a good, concise chat about affordability and some really great programs. So have a great rest of the week and enjoy this last shot of nice weather.
I will if you will. All
We'll see you.
right, bye, Andy.